Welcome back. The beginning of my story starts with an epigraph. The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. And that's Nelson Henderson. When people ask about my heritage, I answer mountain born. I am 5th generation Appalachian. I was born with red clay under my nails. My lineage folds into the mountains. My childhood was one of fat tomatoes and purple-fleshed muscadines. We gardened for the thrill of having the delicious Tennessee earth under our fingernails. Even though I grew up in Appalachia with people who made beauty with their hands, the woods were not a part of my community because we were suburban. However, there are 2 giant trees on my East Tennessee childhood property, one planted for me and one for my sister. They were brought home by my father when I was a toddler. He carried them home in his breast pocket. I love the image of the twin saplings nested in his pocket, warmed by his beating heart before they were planted. As we grew, our trees grew. I talked to mine frequently, weeded around its tender base. I visit that tree every time I go to East Tennessee. And in fact, sometimes I visit it more than I visit my mother. I wanted a whole forest of trees, but the suburbs did not provide that. The occasional family trip to Roan Mountain sustained me. In those woods, I could hear myself better, feel my heart beat more intensely. Part 2, The Old Man of the Mountain Heads North. When I was in middle school, my world was shattered. We were leaving my beloved mountains and moving to a suburb of Boston. The devastation of moving from this hamlet was softened by the promise of a woods in our backyard and one adjoining my new school. My middle school directly backed up to a preserve. I sat alone at the picnic tables closest to the trailheads, longing to bound into the woods at lunch and at recess. I could smell the trees welcoming me with their mix of coolness and warmth. As a transplant from Tennessee, I boasted a thick Appalachian accent. I was the token Southerner, the only Southerner. I received comments like, "We're surprised you wear shoes." The stereotypes of the uneducated Southerner were held firmly there, and middle school years were not friendly anyway. My hair hung long and straight. Puberty managed to make it look both greasy and fly away all at once. I was deeply nearsighted, so severely I have since had 7 eye operations. Add to all this the awkwardness that comes with being a middle schooler, and the woods became my refuge. The fact I had opportunities to bathe in these woods with great frequency was the only balm to this 4-eyed, poetry-loving, greasy-haired middle school girl. To make matters worse, the kids called me Gomer after Gomer Pyle, and a hillbilly. And every time I said the word y'all, I wanted to shove it back in my mouth as the rain of taunts for that beautiful, ubiquitous Southern word lasted an hour. I had fantasies about getting lost in the woods behind our house. Walking between those old trees had a meditative quality, and the sounds of the woods replaced the taunts of the bullies. Trees were such a relief after dealing with people. I was an overly dramatic middle schooler, and I'm still prone to hyperbole and drama. I was raised Lutheran, so at night I would say my prayers and include my mom and dad and my sister and the woods. God bless every tree, I would say. Trees don't have souls, my parents said. I clearly needed a best friend, someone to share the magic of the forest. Finding a kindred spirit is tricky business for a 6th grader. My criteria were long, but it would probably boil down to must love trees. If I was writing a personal ad for a best friend, it would go something like this. 12-year-old, seeking BFF, must love poetry and watercolors. Belief in magic and fairies a plus. Above all, must love woods. You can find me sitting alone at the picnic bench that's closest to the woods by the playground. I'll be the brunette with the difficult hair and thick glasses who's staring off lovingly into the woods, waiting for adventure. We learned how to identify trees in our earth science class. This is where I first met Sandy Williams. Trees can be identified by the leaves, the teacher said, and also the bark. What about their personality? Said Sandy. Excuse me, said the teacher. What about the personality of the tree? Trees have very different personalities. Pine trees are dependable, maple trees are silly. I fell in love with the owner of this hand. She gave me the courage to chime in. I raised my hand, but did not even wait for the teacher to call on me. Elms are great to climb, so they must be trustworthy, I said. Girls, said the teacher, you can't identify a tree by the personality. I'm talking about real ways to identify a tree. Those are real ways, said Sally. But the teacher said she had had just about enough of us. Spoiler alert, the teachers are going to continue to have just about enough of us a lot. In Sandy Williams, I found a kindred spirit, best friend, and woods lover. We learned about the oldest tree in Massachusetts, a hemlock 500 years old. Its tender buds were just starting to peek at the sun during the Renaissance. We vowed to meet her. Most kids our age wanted to go see the boy band Menudo, and we wanted to take a field trip to a tree. Sandy and I had a healthy respect for authority, but not enough to actually obey the rules. We floated above our teachers and our classwork, preferring to create poetry and watercolors of trees. When the other kids were playing dodgeball, we were fantasizing about living in the woods, swallowed by the protective forest. We would know all the trees by name. No one would ever find us. Perhaps a bit of a dark fantasy for a sixth grader, but I found it cozy. We knew in our hearts we could talk to the trees, that they had souls and the woods were full of magic. I told her about my tree back home, and she suggested I write my tree a letter. Send a letter to one of your friends, and she can read it to your tree, and then the tree will not miss you as much, she said. This sounded perfectly reasonable to me. Part 3, orienteering. Because our school had access to woods, orienteering was part of our physical education, or PE class. Our PE teacher explained it was a competitive sport in which participants find ways to various checkpoints across rough country with the aid of a map and compass. What is competitive about a walk in the woods, said Sandy. Our teacher divided us into teams. She knew she could not separate me from Sandy because Lord knows she had tried. So with great resignation, she handed us a compass and a map. Girls, she began with a long sigh, this is not a nature walk. This is a competition. You need to run, not walk. And that means you can't have a conversation with every tree along the way. Please put the physical into physical education. How quickly and accurately we decided on the best route without getting lost would determine our performance and grade in the class. We looked at our map legend. Blue was water, green was dense woods. This was immediately appealing. Yellow symbolized some sort of clearing. Boring. White was a normal forest. What is normal supposed to mean? Asked Sandy. All forests are extraordinary. Orienteering was designed to teach our growing minds directions and cardinal coordinates, math and spatial awareness. We would calculate distances and look at the compass. We were supposed to come back when we heard the whistle. The PE teacher was still by our side. Girls, you must come back when you hear the whistle, even if you have not finished the course. Don't get lost in the woods. But what if we want to get lost in the woods, I asked. What? She yelled. Girls, no. I'm telling you right now that the woods are not a place where... I listened to about half of what she said. I heard waste of school resources, call your parents, not responsible. If we were late, we were only missing our next class period. I didn't even need to speak to Sandy to know we had a tacit understanding. All the students lined up, the boys shuffling to the best position, and they ran off. Sally and I waited till everyone is gone, and then we walked into the woods. We waved enthusiastically at our PE teacher. She palmed her head and made motions for us to hurry, hurry, hurry. We broke into a half-hearted jog, but as soon as we were out of sight, we meandered slowly. The author Stephen McGee once said that trees will tell their secrets to those who tune in. We were tuned in. Tuned into the laughing of the maples, the wisdom of the elms, soaking up the secrets of the woods. There were no camera phones, so instead we would sketch the trees. Of course, we brought our watercolors. What's the point of going to PE class without your watercolors? And I brought my calligraphy pens. I wrote the name of each tree in careful calligraphy, scratching their names like a prayer. As we wandered deeper into the forest, "Don't get lost in the woods" echoed in our minds. In our class, we learned that a forest is growing and changing community, and trees are a dominant part of the forest. We reasoned that since the forest is a changing community, that we, as fellow community members, could never truly be lost. How can you be lost in a dynamic community? If everything is in flow, there's no such thing as being lost. Did we technically get lost? If you define lost as not being able to find the school again, returning to frantic teachers and bells and whistles, then sure, we were lost as hell. This happened many times. We were always late for the next class on orienteering days. Our arrival back to the parking lot was met with commotion, teachers fussing over us. "Your girls are going to be separated next time," the words trailing off as we walked to the next class, the magic of the woods still in our veins. Each trip into the woods, we consulted the map the way a tourist would consult a map in a large city, looking for the best sites. "I can't wait to meet this one tree," Sally said. "I bet it's magnificent." So we orienteered, and we walked, and we learned to walk with silence on our tongues, the woods and meditation. When I was 15, we moved back to Tennessee, away from my beloved woods, away from my friends. I was angry, acting out, feeling the ache of uprooting myself yet again. My mother told me to get out of her house, go to the woods. This was not punitive. This was medicine. If you're feeling blue, here is the treatment. Go to the woods, heal, reflect, become whole. My mother prescribed the medicine of the woods. A boost of forest in my system will untangle the injustices in my heart. Go to the woods. Strong medicine. Strong medicine. Epilogue. The woods still border my middle school. Here are the directions. If you enter this property from the middle school, it's helpful to know that the trail enters the woods directly behind the school, next to the picnic tables. The forest of the preserve contained plenty of pine and oak, but there are also beautiful groves of hemlock and beech, along with birch and holly. The wetter areas abound with maple, sweet pepper bush, and fern. And I still visit my home in East Tennessee, my home tree. If I'm with a partner, we take a picture. My tree now eclipses the house. One day I expect the owners to ask what I'm doing on their property. And if the owners approach me, I'm going to tell them I'm visiting an old friend.